Hi, we're live. This is Mahad from the American University in Cairo, and this is an AMICAL webinar as part of the Digital Pedagogy Committee webinar series. Today's webinar is going to be about blended learning at AMICAL institutions, and there will be others throughout the academic year that we'll be announcing a week or two ahead of time. Here, several guests from Egypt, Lebanon, and Greece who are going to share with us their experiences with blended learning at their institutions. And I have with me in the office here my colleague Nadine is helping me facilitate. Hi. Osman, who is responsible for blended learning at AUC. So I'll let Gihan introduce telling us how we understand.
Hello everyone, I'm Gihan Osman. I am a joint appointment at the Center for Learning and Teaching and the Graduate School of Education. My area is instructional design and faculty support, but I'm also a faculty member. When we think of blended learning at AUC, we think of not only a combination of online learning and face-to-face instruction, but also that essentially the online learning replaces part of the face-to-face instruction. So we follow a replacement model, which is unlike many other institutions that we know of. The reasons we do it, we are going for blended learning at AUC is there are multiple goals. One of them is really to enhance access and outreach beyond Cairo, and to offer a more flexible and convenient modality for our graduate students. But also, we believe that going blended is a back way for transformational or improving the quality of learning experiences. And finally, we think that it's just one of many ways to enhance digital skills on campus.
Thank you, Gihan. Could I ask Rayane and Rana to introduce themselves, and then Jasmina, and then Elissa, and also give us your perspective as you do that.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Rana Haddad, an instructional designer at AUB. I let Rayane introduce herself, and then I guess we'll jump right in.
Hi everyone, my name is Fayed, and I'm also an instructional designer at AUB.
So basically, as a quick intro, we've adopted blended learning back in 2009 here at AUB, and we've been sort of working every semester from then until now on a very robust faculty development program for those who are interested in taking on this teaching approach. What it means for us here at AUB is that courses are taught using both online and face-to-face environments with a reduction of the face-to-face time. Initially, we started with a very strict 70-30 ratio or less online, but now things have become a little bit looser, and ratios are varying from 70-30, 60-40, it's up to basically the instructional designer and the faculty member redesigning their course to decide.
Some of the reasons why we started blended learning at the UB since 2009 is because we wanted to enrich the delivery of the courses and to empower the students to be active learners and truly engage in the courses. We did a lot of research, and we compared the different delivery formats, the face-to-face, the enhanced, the blended, and the online. And we found out that blended learning is basically bringing the best of all the different environments. And this is why, and this is what we start with when we get our faculty development programs. What we do is we really keep it up to the instructors to define the ratio and their level of comfort when designing their courses.
Okay, so I'm up next, I guess. I'm Jasmina Najjar. I'm a communication skills instructor and program coordinator at AUB. I was actually one of the first people to teach blended classes at AUB with the help of my wonderful colleagues who just spoke. And initially I wanted to try it out because I've always been interested in ensuring that my students are active learners, they're engaged, and I'm always one of those people who is excited at the prospect of trying new ways of teaching, but obviously new ways of teaching that meet my learning objectives and the needs of the students.
So there's a question on why it's important to include the ratios. First of all, we wanted to give an argument for administration on how are we assessing the blended courses and how are we dealing with the blended courses. So we found out that it is comfortable for faculty members to try the 70-30. It is not a set ratio for all faculty members. So we started with 70-30, but then based on the needs of the different faculties, we do change this. So it is not set in stone.
So, and just to add what Rayane just said, when we took this on in 2009, we had a guest professor from the University of Illinois basically give the first iteration of this faculty development program that we have, and also work with us on, you know, just setting the grounds on how we're going to adopt this, how are we going to roll it out, you know, how do we get faculty buy-in, how do we get the administration on board. And one of the suggestions was for us to start slow and to start at a comfort level for both the administration and the faculty members. And back then, the talks with the provost and the provost's office, this was the comfort level that was basically set by the provost office at the time. Now, many years later, this has changed, and now we don't talk about ratio as much. You know, it's not a question that comes up as often as it used to in the past.
Elissa, would you like to share your perspective?
Sure. I'm Elissa Raffa. I worked for 6 years as a distance learning and collaborative technologies advisor at the American College of Greece, and I left just this past summer. I've also worked for 20 years in online learning and am currently the executive director of Minnesota Online High School. At the American College of Greece, we introduced blended learning first in the graduate program, and now that's been extended to some undergraduate courses in the graduate school with specific programs, and now it's been extended to some undergraduate courses. I think I agree with everything else that's been said about the opportunity to transform learning. Having worked in exclusively online learning for 20 years, very intensively, in a setting where every student needed to be met online, I see blended learning as a creative luxury, just a wonderful opportunity to figure out what works best for students in different environments, and to for an instructor and an instructional designer to work together to put something together that best meets the students' learning needs and the most students' learning needs. We too, at American College of Greece, we started with the ratio saying that 30 to 50% of face-to-face class meeting time could be fully replaced by online learning and by online activities. I do think that less than 30%, we've had some conversations between instructors and instructional designers about less than 30%, and at a point for one course, we pushed it all the way down to 16%. Just turned out to be that that's how it worked. But I think there is a blurry line between technology enhanced courses or just good pedagogical use of technology and actually liberating students from some class meetings. And especially, you know, I think it's important to figure that out, because as we go forward and figure out new ways to do things in class, I think we also want to keep cognizant of student and faculty workload. So that's it for now.
I really liked your use of the word liberate. facing students? Folks, what the biggest challenges, maybe whether from the faculty or repeat this because I heard I've been breaking up. So I'm just going to ask people to say challenges facing, whether faculty development on blended learning or I guess challenges we face with blended learning.
I think challenges for me, it's because blended learning is relatively new here, and a lot of it is about I think
I think we need to.
load as research.
Okay, so because the sound quality isn't that great, I'm going to talk a little bit about the challenges. Yeah. So basically, I felt that at least on a faculty development level at AUB, there's a lot of professional support from obviously, you know, Rayane and Rana and the whole team. And yes, there, you know, we already have a platform that we all use, Moodle, as a learning management for, you know, our LMS. And you know, the way that they go about the training was very manageable. We were introduced to software that might be meaningful to our courses, and we weren't bombarded by a lot of software which might not be necessary for our own learning objectives and our course. I feel though that later on it's really up to the faculty member to continue their own development based on what they see, what's happening, the interaction with the students, shifts in the course itself. I think some things later on, you know, you need to go the extra mile on your own. But then again, there always is that institutional support that's there, which is wonderful. And the team really go out of their way to make sure that we have what we need.
So if I can just add on to what Jasmina just said, also Jasmina was one of the faculty members we worked with who actually really enjoyed doing things on her own and ownership of her course design, I think. And if we were to present a challenge from the administration side, if you want, from the tech people side or the instructional designer side, would be that not everyone is like Jasmina. So we deal with all kinds of faculty members, some who really know why they want to do this and, you know, are tech savvy. They understand the benefits and the challenges and sort of take the training or the faculty development and then run with it on their own. And there are others who may need a lot more guidance and support from our end during the redesign process and also during the delivery of the blended course, and moving on iteratively as often as this is going to be offered, and every time it needs to be relooked at and redesigned. So unlike maybe other larger universities who have a tech team who are in charge of building the courses themselves and then giving it to the faculty member to teach in a blended format, here we have our faculty do the work sometimes on their own. Now, we do have guidelines that faculty members do need to take and complete the training, the blended faculty development, before they can actually officially have a blended course listed on the course catalog. But after that, I mean, there isn't enough staff, there aren't enough resources to actually build the courses ourselves and then give them to the faculty members. So we do work with several levels, if you want, of subject matter experts who can do some very little, some a lot. And this also poses a challenge when it comes to quality. So when we're not actually controlling the course design ourselves, we do have to have a very robust rubric that we use when, you know, when the courses are designed, because they are being designed partly by us and partly by the SME. So
I'd like to talk about another challenge, which is the culture we have here. Faculty members are, of course, subject matter experts and have been teaching in a specific way for so long. So, as you know, blended learning requires a shift in culture and a shift in the way the course is being taught. So the first few sessions in the faculty development programs talks about this. So we try to understand from the faculty members how open they are in changing the way they teach, and how open they are of destructing all the course and then building it from scratch all over again. So this is a challenge that we face. Some of the faculty members just say they want to teach the way they are used to teach. And some other faculty members are more open, more flexible, and more agile in the way of rethinking the way to teach. So this is another challenge. Shall I jump into another question? Okay, I added for Elissa to talk. Elissa, the floor is yours.
Sorry, I had my mic muted. The relationships that all of our institutions are talking about establishing between a faculty member or subject matter expert and an instructional designer is a really new way of working for many people. It's because it deprivatizes teaching practice. So, and I do think that's a challenge. I was really lucky to work with fantastic instructional designers and fantastic faculty members who came to understand that the instructional designers were there to help them do what they wanted for their students. But it is, you know, all of a sudden everything you're doing as a teacher is open to discussion with another person or other persons. And I do think that it's an adjustment, and it's a positive one. Another just really quick idea about something that can be a challenge is, I think, teacher presence in the course. That a lot of energy can go into deciding how do we build this, and then once it's running, students have expectations when they log into an online environment, when they come into the online learning activities, the blended part, you know, the online part of the blended course. I think students are looking for instructor presence, and sometimes it takes a shift for instructors to realize that they need to not control a conversation, but show up, find ways to let students know that they're there and they're active, even if they're taking a little step back, so that students can be even more active. So I think there's that fine balance, and sometimes just figuring out how to exhibit instructor presence without taking over is a skill that takes some time to develop.
I think it's important also to differentiate between teaching presence and instructor presence, because it doesn't have to be the teacher doing the teaching type of thing. So you could have students facilitate, especially if they're graduate students. They can facilitate, support each other, and so on. So there was a question from YouTube from Ivana from AUK, and she was asking us, have we ever done, I think she wants to ask if we've ever done online sessions as part of the blended learning model. I'm not really sure if she means synchronous. Maybe she means synchronous sessions, which like clearly this is not a good example of one. Right. Because Wi-Fi problems here. But
Maha, I'm not sure, but I think she meant information literacy. So maybe
IL, right?
Okay,
maybe
so we can answer both questions. We can start with the information literacy as we understood the question. Part of our training, we have a module specifically on content authoring. And part of this, we invite the library to come and give us sessions on how to find external material, what is available out there, because we don't want to create everything from scratch. So the short answer to this is yes, we do have a component about information literacy.
And just to maybe go back a few years, the way before it started, before 2009, before AUB decided let's take on blended learning, we were already engaged in an initiative with the Meta Foundation and doing close collaborative work with the library and with our Center for Teaching and Learning. So it sort of went, it went without saying that we had to keep these two units involved in our faculty development program when it comes to blended learning. So during our workshop, which is a 5-week-long workshop, a full module is on content authoring, like Rayane said, and that's mainly run by the library. And also the early modules are the ones talking about learning outcomes and how to draft them and you know, the backward design principle and how everything is built on those. That one is usually facilitated by our Center for Teaching and Learning. So I hope that answers the question.
I actually have a question about this information literacy as part of the blended learning model. Do you mean, I mean, this is a separate question. Do you mean like, should there be information literacy as part of every blended learning course? Like, is that part of what the question is? I think I was just thinking about is information literacy itself. There's probably a lot of self-paced modules and this kind of thing that other institutions use already. When I was doing my PhD, it was a self-paced thing that you did on your own time, so the student could decide what they needed. But even though over here we have an actual course that students attend.
Yes, Mina, do you usually include information literacy in your English courses?
I personally do, and in fact, I've been working a lot for the past 2 semesters with fake news, and I'm getting my students, you know, working on assignments related to that. Because if I mean, we basically teach, you know, research and academic writing. So part and parcel of that is information literacy, and we work quite closely with the librarians as well, who give our students dedicated information literacy sessions in addition to what we discuss in class. And I feel that definitely, I mean, you can use the blended model for information literacy and for any subject for that matter.
Yes, you did. You made a lot of sense. I was thinking also that when we ask about information literacy and in the context of blended learning, I think digital literacy is also important. So it isn't just the aspect of whether they can find out if information is accurate or evaluate sources, but also because they're working in a blended environment, when to use which tools. And Nadina's worked a little bit on netiquette as well. and providing students with support on that. Is there anybody that is something they need to do? Do you give orientations to students when they're using tools who have issues with their, not just their digital skills, but digital literacies when they're doing blended courses? And the faculty, of course, too.
Well, I mean, I think I don't necessarily see information literacy as something that I would do in relation to blended learning as opposed to all courses. I mean, yesterday I had my research class and we talked about, about false news as well, and about information literacy. And so I think things like digital literacy or how to succeed online, or for faculty, of course, how to find resources online. I think that is something that I consider, I would tend to consider more when I think of blended learning than information literacy. I think information literacy in our context would apply to all courses, and to all students, whether it's blended or not.
So Tatavik is asking if people have a small library session integrated in their course and delivered by a librarian, for example, via Moodle. So yeah, it probably is a question for Jasmina. Go ahead.
Yeah, actually we do this. We introduce research in our classes, and then we have sessions scheduled at the library, led by librarians, focused on the resources that students have available at our library, highlighting things related to information literacy, identifying the credibility of sources, which is something we in turn, as instructors, reinforce in our own classes outside of the library sessions. And I'd like to add actually a couple of things about digital literacy. I try as much as I can to incorporate it in my classes, because ultimately we can't assume that our students are completely, digital natives. We're assuming that they are, but there are many concerns that maybe, we need to address, like issues of their privacy when we opt to use one particular online platform over another. Even like this semester, I'm getting some students to work on mind maps, and I'm online, and I'm getting some students to do podcasts. And while yes, you might give them a few tutorials to watch, but you really need to step in as well. You can't really assume that everyone will pick up on the technology and just move forward without assistance.
I would like to speak to that too. First of all, to the issue of digital natives. Can you guys hear okay? Because it seems like there's a lot of feedback right now. I worked with a class of undergraduates, and I asked them if they were digital natives. Most of them were around 19 or 20 years old, and their answer was, I'm not, but my 16-year-old brother or sister is. So I think that everybody feels immigrant or non-native in a technological environment, or almost everybody. That's changing so rapidly, and there are personal decisions that need to get made in an academic setting. So when Jasmina talked about privacy, I think there was also a question earlier, along with the information literacy question. There's a question about, is there always new material you create, design in general, for the faculty and specific courses? I think there are some kinds of infrastructural pieces that can be done on an institutional level, and I'd be interested in hearing from other institutions about these. So for example, at American College of Greece, we had a lot of conversations about tools that are supported by the college. And in that case, students' access is through an account that can be deactivated by the college, versus tools that are recommended by a teacher and supported by that teacher, because there isn't really, it's not a college tool. In which case the teacher needs to inform the students. And we just wrote, a paragraph of template language saying, in order to do this class activity, I'm asking you to create this account. And when we're done with the class activity, it's your choice whether to keep the account or take it down. And I think just that little bit of teaching for students about the fact that, that they are creating a digital footprint, and also recognizing that colleges, institutions, and instructors have authority when a student's in a class and being graded. So we're using our authority to ask them to set up accounts in some systems where they might or might not want to have an ongoing life. So we need to then remind them, just kindly remind them that it's theirs to manage once the class is over. And there are some legal precedents for times that didn't happen, and students challenged or sued institutions. I don't think it's a big deal, but I do think it's an important part of teaching in this environment to recognize that we're requiring students to do some things that they should later actually make active decisions about, not just forget about.
So Elissa, and there's several questions coming from YouTube, but I also want to follow up on what Elissa was just talking about. You're talking about what it means when we ask students to use tools that are outside the institution, where they don't have control over their data afterwards necessarily. And if that's the case, I was wondering what others, do any of our institutions have policies about these kinds of things, or any guidelines that we give faculty about whether they want to use anything outside of the... And there's no reason to assume the institutional tool is great because it dies after you leave also.
Yeah, I mean, at AUC, I don't think we have institutional policies about what you have to use or what you don't have to use. A lot of faculty actually do not use our LMS, especially if they want to be more creative or they want to encourage collaboration with their students. So a lot of them would use tools outside the LMS, and we ask the LT as a session with them and help their students. But other than that, I don't think we control in any way.
No, what we do have though is a bit of institutional process that we suggest people follow to start reading the course, which is not a specific.
Yeah, we don't tell them, for example, what to do with. We tell them don't put grades on social media and things like that. But these are very, very basic things. Do you have anything at AUB? And then we can go to the question, which is slightly related. Outside of it was asking about tools. It's about the.
So basically, at AUB, our faculty members are obviously free to use any tool they choose in their teaching, but we do have some tools that are obviously supported by our IT help desk, but also that are mentioned in our security awareness. So there are tools like Moodle, for instance, being the official LMS, like Lime Survey being the official surveying tool at AUB. And other software that we may support that are made clear to our community that those are backed up, they're supported. Any downtime that happens on there, we're responsible for. Any loss of data, any type of security breach. So there are a set of applications, if you want, that we are responsible for, but they're definitely free, and I'm sure Jasmina can say the same thing, is they're free to use any other tool. We have faculty members who use Facebook in their courses. We have some that use Socrative, Kahoot. There are many applications and tools out there that we are open for our faculty to use, obviously.
There's a lot of stuff happening on the chat. Yeah. So one of the things, for example, is Dimitris was saying that he's used Slack with his students. I think that using Slack versus something like Facebook kind of decision, because Facebook has all kinds of ethical issues related and a lot of baggage that comes with it, where and then loses it, and it's not as big of a deal. I think collects a lot of data and does a lot of things with it. Oh no, we can't hear. Better? Can you hear me now? Slightly better? So yes. The other question that was earlier was about whether people use bring your own device, BYOD. I think it's slightly, I'm assuming the question relates to use of technology in the classroom rather than blended.
At AUB, yes, we do encourage faculty members to ask their students to bring their own devices, because not all of the classrooms are equipped with computers and laptops. However, there's one challenge, which is the connection. So whenever there's a need for the students to bring their devices, they do. We try to support them as much as they can. We try to help them install the software or any application that is needed before the class or during the orientation. However, we cannot anticipate any problem that might happen during the session.
Yeah, I'd like to.
And I think,
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Jasmine. I was just going to say that students bring their own device anyway these days, I think. Whether if it's not a laptop, it's some other type of device. So I think you were going to probably say something along those lines, Jasmina, based on your students.
Yeah, I mean, I really encourage them. I mean, I personally use Socrative and Kahoot a lot. I use Audacity. I use like 1,000,001 other things. I'm very into using things, maybe a bit too much. But what I'd like to say is that unfortunately, you always, no matter what you do, you always need to have a plan B. So sometimes you have a class assignment ready and you check the tech before, and then the Wi-Fi goes down, which means the students, if you want them to say interact through Socrative or Kahoot, they can't actually do that because the Wi-Fi is not working. Sometimes, you reach a point where you've planned everything, and then, the computer decides that it doesn't want to work. So I think you always need to have a plan B, and sometimes the plan B, has to be, something which is non-digital, if you know what I mean. And I also think that when it comes to at least blended learning, to make sure that you're assigning things where the deadline is not during the weekend, because many students are not maybe near campus during the weekend and they don't have internet connectivity up in their village or what have you. There is a digital divide sometimes, and we can't assume that all of our students have the same means and the same resources available.
Yes, I agree with you. Here, if ever I need devices in my classroom, even if I tell students to bring theirs, I always have 2 or 3 extra ones, just in case someone's phone's broken or whatever, or someone forgot to bring their laptop. And I never ask a specific student who needs it. I just bring them and I put them there if someone wants to come and pick them up. And if you need them to do something digital, there has to be facilities on campus in case they don't have them at home, and like you say, not weekend stuff. So sometimes if there's something specific that they need to do using audio visual, you need to make sure that there's a lab that is equipped and not booked during the time that they might need to use it. Sure. Okay, so Tatavik is asking about the mobile policy in classes. When she does her library sessions, she specifically asks permission from instructors to use the mobiles during the training. That's a good point. I don't think we have a unified policy here at AUC, and people have different opinions on this.
Yeah, I think the general opinion or the general attitude is that instructors frown upon using mobile technologies. Many of us, or some of us, actually, since students have those devices, we try and incorporate those in our teaching, but I don't think we have a particular policy at AUC.
Yeah, at AUB we don't have a specific policy either. It is on a it is left up to the instructor. In my case, I actually encourage my students to use their phones by accessing, offline dictionaries and some other tools that can possibly help them. But obviously, if there's maybe an in-class graded test or whatever, then I probably would not encourage that. And as I mentioned, I do use, Kahoot and Socrative a lot, and that would require them to use their phones. So they're using their phones more than not, if you know what I mean.
And I have students sometimes use Google Docs, so they start writing something on a Google Docs collaboratively in the classroom, or occasionally, you know, we're talking about something and spontaneously they'll look it up, and that's fine. It's better than me going and telling them the answer, or them going without knowing.
Well, it's part of developing their independence, I mean, as learners. I mean, I always think about it. I mean, if you feel threatened by their mobile device, it shows something about how engaging the activities are in the classroom. And so I feel that mobile devices for our students are like an additional arm or leg that I should make use of in the classroom more often. I personally love the whiteboard. And I love them to collaborate on the whiteboard, so very minimal technology, but yeah, I mean, if they want to use it,
yeah. It might look like they're writing, but they're actually doodling, right? Or they'll look like they're looking at you, but they're really actually daydreaming. They could pass notes to each other instead of WhatsApp messages.
Right.
I mean,
we did that before.
Yeah, I remember being a student.
Right.
It was never, yeah. And the only thing about phones is that they give you notifications, but also somebody could kick you in the what's. I mean,
Yeah, I think if the task is engaging enough, then that is what counts. That is the main factor.
Yeah. So Jasmina, you want to talk about plagiarism, I see. That
Yeah.
probably have a question because Gihan and I need to go up to give a blended learning workshop in 10 minutes. So go ahead, Jasmina.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that a lot of, faculty members are kind of hesitant to embrace blended learning because of their concerns about plagiarism and the fact that, okay, if students are not doing something physically in class, maybe they're just copying and pasting from the internet or what have you. And ultimately, I really don't think that this is a concern, given that if a student is going to cheat, they will find a way to cheat regardless. And I really think that, we have a problem anyway with students buying papers. We have a problem with students finding ways of cheating in a regular face-to-face class. So I really don't think that plagiarism is a justified concern as to why you would not have a blended class. The workload, because it is an added workload, we're not going to lie, can be a concern, but I don't think plagiarism is or should be.
I agree, and I think that there is a challenge to writing online learning activities or prompts, question prompts, or whatever the format is. I think there is a challenge to writing things that require students to do original work, and writing activities or assignments or assessments that require students to do original work. Likewise, when it was said that if students are not paying, if the classroom activity isn't engaging or task, then maybe students' attention will wander elsewhere. So I think in both environments and in all learning environments, there's a challenge to continue to push ourselves to come up with ways for students to apply what they're learning in an active way and in a way that challenges them to do something original. And it's true in all learning environments. So I wouldn't say it's a non-issue. I would just say it's not an exceptional issue. It's the same one.
Well, I'd like to add that we do consider plagiarism, and we talk about it during our faculty development a lot. Many faculty members have some concerns about it, especially when they're moving into the online environment. And we do see that students may tend to cheat in the online environment because they find themselves alone behind the screen and they have access to all the internet. However, from our side, as instructional designers, we try to tackle it in two ways. For our courses like Jasmina's and other humanities courses, of course, we have the Turnitin, which is the software that detects plagiarism. So we do highly recommend to use it. But in other courses, we really focus on the type of assessment that is being designed in those blended courses. And we tell the faculty members to design authentic assessment and activities that would engage students and let them try to find that every answer should be unique and related to their personal experience or to their personal life.
Thank you for that, Rayane. Hi, everybody. This is Nadine. Maha and Gihan had to run off to a face-to-face workshop, but we're going to continue the conversation until 1 o'clock, and I think we have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions, and then I think afterwards we can discuss or continue the conversation on AMICAL Connect. So anybody online have any input, or do you have any follow-up questions to what Rayane said?
There was a question about the instructional design model that we follow.
Yeah, go for it. I already responded online, and we usually at AUC, we use backwards design and the ADDIE model, but you can go ahead and talk about the design models that you guys use.
Okay, so initially, when we first started this, up until about a year ago, we also adopted the ADDIE model. We modified it halfway through to be a little bit more iterative, but still based on the waterfall cascading trends of an ADDIE model. We also used the backward design principle. We did modify the backward design table a little bit to match the comfort level of our faculty with it. Some backward design tables tend to be very complicated, so we did modify it to fit our own needs. And a year ago, we changed our approach to instructional design from the ADDIE model to a more agile model. We are not following SAM, which is the model that's quite a bit referred to in instructional design as the agile model. We sort of loosely based it on that, but developed, again, I think our own. I'm not sure, it might exist somewhere else. But we basically, now every course design is approached by a team. We do have an infographic out there on PictoChart. That's a public infographic that explains our agile design process. But basically, the team is made up of the SME, so the subject matter expert. It's made up of a media specialist, an instructional designer, and an instructional technologist. And what happens is the design process becomes a little bit more iterative now that there are more people working on the course design than just the ID. So basically, we start with the course framework, we move on to the module development. From there, we storyboard to move them on to the instructional module by module. So we no longer wait until we complete the entire backward design table the way we used to before. And Jasmina, you were probably back when we were doing, the whole backward design table. Then we moved on to building it on Moodle. And by the time, the semester starts, we're still in the process of the quality assurance. And if by then we had detected something was wrong with the course, we had to basically go back to square one. So the way we're doing it now is that we map out one module, we move it onto the Moodle team for setup on Moodle, for the media specialist to create all the resources on it. And in the meantime, the instructor is working on module 2 with their ID, and et cetera, et cetera. So, and we do quality checks after each module is up on Moodle so that we can apply changes and make improvements the next module as it's up. I hope this makes sense. It would have made more sense if you were able to see the chart or see the model in front of you. I'm not sure if there's a way for us to share this later on, but I hope it makes sense.
Okay, so we're going to be posting this infographic on AMICAL Connect after the session, and we'll be more than happy to discuss this model with you. If you have any question or suggestions, we can discuss them over there.
Thank you so much for that, Rana. And yes, Rayane, go ahead and share it, and so we can post that infographic online. It seems like it will be really, really beneficial for everybody who's moving forward and starting their blended learning course design. at AUC, because we do a blended learning, a very short blended learning course, which is about 6 weeks, and that blended learning course is actually done in a blended format. So we do a lot of online activities in between the face-to-face sessions. While that course is going, it's going on with faculty who want to actually start designing their course. They usually meet with us face-to-face in between, with mini consultations, and we start doing the design of their courses hands-on. And we do the very, very similar thing that Rana said. We sit together with them, we design a module, and then we move it to the instructional technologists, who would then suggest the best educational technology for that kind of pedagogical purpose. And once we're done with the design and that first module, that course goes into vetting, and it goes through the blended learning committee at AUC, and they vet the process. They look at that module. They would either suggest changes or approve the course, and after that, they would just spend a little bit more time developing and designing the content. And if they need to film anything online or any online lectures and online activities, that will go hand in hand with their face-to-face module. And that's pretty much it. And then it gets a registrar designation the next semester, and it starts going through. So it's a very, very similar process. Thank you for that. Okay, so I'm just trying to follow up with the YouTube questions. I'm trying to look for if anybody else has any questions, because we're just 3 minutes away from needing to end this, because I think another event is happening afterwards. All right, I just want to thank everybody from Greece, Lebanon, and Gihan and Maha, who are not here now, but I'm sure they're going to hear that later on. And thank you so much, AMICAL, for organizing this. If anybody has any very final comments, they could say it. Otherwise, we can go ahead and continue this conversation on AMICAL Connect.
That's the comment.
And thank you so much for our viewers, Dimitris, Ivana, Tatev, everybody who is online. Thank you guys so much for being very interactive and asking your questions. And Jeff, thank you so much for your clarifications and being here. And it was an absolute pleasure talking to all of you guys.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.